The Galactic Council chambers fell silent as the emergency transmission flickered across the massive holographic display. High Counselor Vexaren's four eyes widened, their bioluminescent patterns shifting from calm blue to alarmed crimson. The transmission showed only static at first, then clarified to reveal the impossible, a vessel of unknown design and origin, bearing markings unlike any registered species in Council space. "What am I looking at, Admiral?" Vexaren's voice, normally melodious and controlled, carried an edge of tension that silenced the murmurs around the circular chamber. Admiral Thrix, a veteran of the Unified Defense Force with scales that had long since faded from vibrant green to a weathered gray, stepped forward. His tail twitched nervously, a gesture he hadn't displayed since the Hive Wars 3 centuries ago. "High Counselor, the vessel appeared at the edge of the Artemis sector approximately 12 standard units ago. It bypassed 3 security checkpoints without triggering our detection grid." A collective gasp rippled through the assembled representatives of the 217 species that comprised the Galactic Council. The detection grid had been impenetrable for millennia, designed by the ancient Krell, whose mastery of spatial mathematics remained unmatched even now. "That's impossible," whispered Delegate Zenora of the Meridian Collective, her tentacles writhing in distress. "Nothing penetrates the grid without authorization." And yet, Admiral Thrix continued, his voice dropping lower, "This vessel did exactly that. Moreover, when Outpost Station Kappa 9 attempted standard communication protocols, the vessel responded in perfect Council standard, but refused to identify itself or state its purpose." The hologram shifted to show the vessel more clearly. It was unlike the elegant organic curves preferred by most spacefaring species. This ship was angular, aggressive, almost primitive in its design, with visible weapons systems that seemed unnecessarily exposed. It radiated power but lacked the subtlety of Council engineering philosophy. High Counselor Vexaren's secondary hands tapped a complex sequence on the control panel before them. Tactical assessment. The Admiral's scales rippled, a sign of deep discomfort. "The vessel appears to be armed, but with technology we cannot fully analyze. Energy signatures suggest capabilities beyond our classification system. We simply don't know what we're dealing with." For a moment, the Council chamber remained dead silent. In a galaxy where knowledge was currency and the unknown was nearly extinct, this admission was more frightening than any declared threat. "Have we consulted the archives?" asked Vexaren. The chief archivist, an ancient Lorexi, whose translucent body housed a living library of memories, floated forward. "I have searched all known records, High Counselor. There is nothing resembling this vessel or its technology in our histories." Another silence, heavier than the first. "Then we are facing a first contact scenario," Vexaren stated flatly. "Prepare the diplomatic." "High Counselor," interrupted Admiral Thrix, "there's more." The hologram changed again, this time showing a magnified section of the hull. There, unmistakable even to the most alien of eyes present, was a symbol and a word in characters that sent a shiver through the assembled council. "EAR," read the High Counselor, the unfamiliar word awkward on their lips. "What does it signify?" The archivist's body pulsed with faint light as ancient memories were accessed. "There is a mention, a footnote in the records from the Great Expansion, a small isolated world in a yellow star system, deemed pre-spaceflight and placed under non-interference protocols approximately 300 cycles ago." 300 cycles. Delegate Zenora's voice rose in disbelief. "No species develops from pre-spaceflight to grid-penetrating technology in 300 cycles. It took the Volshik 10 times that long just to achieve stable warp fields." Admiral Thrix's scales had now shifted to a deep purple, a color of grave concern. Whatever the explanation, the fact remains. This vessel, bearing the mark of a world we classified as primitive, has breached our most secure perimeter and is now holding position at the edge of the Artemis sector, just outside our core systems. Vexaren's four eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of intense calculation. The expansion initiative. Our plans to move into the outer reaches, if this represents an unknown power already present in those regions. It would require complete recalibration of our strategic projections. Finished Diplomatic Counselor Trev, speaking for the first time. The avian representative's feathers were slicked flat against their body in a display of extreme caution. The initiative has been in planning for 7 decades. The resources already committed would pale in comparison to the resources needed if we stumbled into conflict with an advanced civilization we know nothing about, Vexarin stated firmly. The hologram flickered again, and all eyes turned to it. The vessel, the Earth ship, was moving, slowly but deliberately advancing deeper into Council space. "They've ignored our hails for the past hour," reported Admiral Thrix. "Defense fleet is in position, but without knowing their capabilities, we cannot risk hostilities," Vexarin decided. "Not yet. Not until we understand what we're facing." Just then, the communication system activated, and a voice filled the chamber, a voice speaking perfect Council standard, but with an accent none present had ever heard before. "Attention, Galactic Council. This is Captain Samuel Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel Intrepid. We understand our arrival is unexpected. We also understand you've been watching our world for centuries while deciding our fate. That ends today. We request a formal diplomatic meeting to discuss the immediate recognition of Earth's sovereign status and our rightful place among the stars. You have 1 standard rotation to respond." The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the Council in stunned silence. "How?" began Delegate Zenora. "How did they know about the observation posts?" "Those are our most closely guarded. It appears," interrupted Vexarin gravely, "that we have severely underestimated these humans." Admiral Thrix's scales had shifted to ash-white, a color rarely seen among his kind, the color of fundamental uncertainty. "High Counselor, the Defense Fleet awaits your orders." Vexarin stared at the image of the Earth vessel, angular, aggressive, and utterly confident as it held position against ships that, until today, had been considered the most advanced in the galaxy. "Order the fleet to maintain position, but take no aggressive action," Vexarin finally commanded, "and prepare the grand reception chamber. It seems we will be hosting unexpected guests." As the Council chamber erupted into urgent discussion, Vexarin remained silent, 4 eyes fixed on the Earth ship. The expansion initiative, the Council's carefully orchestrated plan for galactic development over the next millennium, would need to be completely reconsidered in light of this new player. A player that had, in a single day, demonstrated technology that should have been impossible and knowledge that should have been inaccessible. The humans had arrived, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. Captain Samuel Chen stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, hands clasped behind his back, as he stared at the holographic display showing the Galactic Council's defense fleet. 27 vessels of varying sizes and configurations, all maintaining a respectful distance from humanity's first deep space warship. He allowed himself a small smile. The element of surprise had worked exactly as intended. "Captain, we're receiving transmission requests from 6 different Council vessels now," reported Lieutenant Diane Rivera from the communications station. Her dark eyes never left the rapidly scrolling data on her screen. "They're all using slightly different protocols. I think they're trying to figure out which communication systems we're compatible with." "Let them wait," Chen replied, his voice calm but firm. "They've had centuries to decide if we were worth talking to. They can handle a few more hours." Commander James Walker, the Intrepid's executive officer, stepped closer to Chen. His weathered face showed the lines of someone who had fought in Earth's unification wars, making him one of the few aboard with actual combat experience. "Do you think they'll actually agree to a meeting?" Walker asked quietly. Chen turned slightly. "They don't have much choice. We're inside their defense network. We've demonstrated technology they didn't think we had, and we've made it clear we know about their observation of Earth. Right now, they have more questions than answers, and that makes us unpredictable." Walker nodded. Unpredictability is a tactical advantage, but it's temporary, which is precisely why we need to push for diplomatic recognition now, before they have time to properly assess our capabilities. Chen turned to the tactical station. Lieutenant Harper, what's the status of the defense fleet? Sarah Harper, the ship's tactical officer, studied her displays with practiced efficiency. No weapons powered up, Captain. Their shields are active but at standard configurations. I'm detecting a lot of scanning activity, though. They're definitely trying to figure out what we are and what we can do. Let them scan, Chen said with a slight shrug. Our hull composition will give their sensors fits. The bridge crew shared knowing looks. The Intrepid's hull contained elements not found on the periodic table prior to the quantum breakthrough of 2057. The metamaterials created through the stabilization of quantum states had properties that would confound any conventional analysis. Captain, Rivera called from communications. We're getting a direct transmission from what appears to be the Council flagship. Priority signal. Chen straightened his uniform. On screen, the main display shifted to show an alien face. Vexaren, the High Counselor of the Galactic Council. Four eyes blinked in what Chen recognized from the briefings as a gesture of formal acknowledgement. Captain Chen of Earth. The alien spoke, their voice modulated to human hearing range. I am High Counselor Vexaren. The Galactic Council acknowledges your request for diplomatic discourse. We offer to receive your delegation in the Grand Reception Chamber in 6 standard hours. Chen kept his expression neutral, though inwardly he felt a surge of satisfaction. Earth intelligence had predicted the Council would need at least a day to debate their response. This rapid acquiescence suggested they were more rattled than anticipated. High Counselor, we accept your invitation. A delegation of 3 will transport to your coordinates at the appointed time. Vexaren's eyes blinked in the pattern that indicated surprise. You possess matter transportation technology. Chen allowed himself a small smile. We possess many technologies, Counselor. The extent of human capabilities is something I look forward to discussing during our meeting. The transmission ended, and Chen turned to face his senior officers. Walker, Rivera, you'll accompany me to the Council. Harper, you have the ship. If anything seems off, if the defense fleet makes any suspicious movements, don't wait for orders. Execute Protocol Thermopylae. Harper nodded grimly. Protocol Thermopylae was the contingency plan if diplomacy failed. A fighting retreat that would showcase just enough of the Intrepid's capabilities to make pursuit an unattractive option. In his private ready room, Chen accessed the secure communications channel to Earth Defense Command. General Laura Wilson's face appeared on the screen, her expression the practiced neutral look of someone who had been in military leadership during humanity's most challenging decades. Captain, status report, she demanded without preamble. Phase 1 complete, General. We've secured a diplomatic meeting in 6 hours. The Council appears sufficiently impressed by our arrival to expedite proceedings. Wilson nodded. And their defense capabilities. Exactly as our intelligence suggested, advanced, but predictable. They rely heavily on automated systems and protocols. Protocols we've been studying since we captured that scout ship in the Kuiper Belt 18 years ago. The General's expression darkened. The Council doesn't know we have that ship, or the technologies we've reversed engineered from it. That's our ace, Captain. Use it sparingly. Understood, General. But we need to establish our position of strength immediately. Earth can't afford to enter galactic politics as a minor player. Wilson's eyes narrowed slightly. Just remember your orders, Captain. We want recognition and respect, not a war. The Council has existed for millennia. They have resources we can't yet imagine. With respect, General, they also have weaknesses they can't imagine. 2 centuries of isolation forced humanity to develop technologies along entirely different paths. Their reliance on Krell's spatial mathematics has left them blind to the quantum manipulation methods we've pioneered. The General was silent for a moment. Your father would be proud, Samuel. He always said humanity would find its own way to the stars. Shen felt a familiar pang at the mention of his father, Dr. William Chen, whose controversial theories on quantum state manipulation had been ridiculed by the scientific community until the breakthrough that made ships like the Intrepid possible. He also said we'd need to be ready for what we found out here, Chen replied softly. And are we ready? The general's question carried the weight of humanity's future. Chen thought about the centuries of observation, the Council's decision to classify Earth as primitive and place it under non-interference protocols, effectively quarantining humanity from the galactic community during its most vulnerable development period. He thought about the decades of secretly watching the Watchers, of careful preparation for this moment. "We're as ready as we'll ever be," he answered finally. "One way or another. After today, humanity takes its place among the stars." As the transmission ended, Shen turned to look out the viewport at the distant shapes of the Council vessels. Behind them, just visible, was the glimmering structure of the Council hub, the political center of a galactic civilization that had existed since before humans had mastered fire. They had no idea what was coming. In the private chambers adjacent to the Grand Reception Hall, High Counselor Vexerin faced the Emergency Advisory Committee, the 12 most senior members of the Council, representing the founding species. "How is this possible?" demanded Counselor Zrath of the Volshic Dominion, his crystalline form vibrating with agitation. 300 cycles ago, these humans were barely harnessing nuclear energy. "Clearly, our assessment was flawed," replied Archivist Lorexi calmly. "Or perhaps their development path was accelerated by some factor we failed to consider." Admiral Thrix's scales had now settled into a mottled pattern of concern and calculation. What matters is not how they developed so quickly, but what capabilities they now possess. That vessel out there bypassed our detection grid, which means they understand spatial folding principles we thought unique to the Council, and their captain's confidence suggests they may have other surprises waiting. Vexeren's voice dropped to a near whisper. "There is another matter of grave concern. Our long-range sensors have detected unusual activity at the edge of the observed zone around Earth. It appears they may have more than one vessel." The chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. "How many?" asked Counselor Trev, the avian's crest fully extended in alarm. Admiral Thrix hesitated. "We cannot be certain. The same technology that allowed this warship to bypass our detection grids seems to be obscuring our scans, but energy signatures suggest at least 3 more vessels of similar size to the one currently at our doorstep." 4 warships. Zrath's crystalline form shimmered with agitation. 4 warships from a species we classified as primitive just 3 centuries ago. "We don't know that they're all warships," countered the archivist. "We should not jump to conclusions." Vexeren's secondary hands tapped a rapid sequence on the control panel, bringing up historical data. "Look at their planetary history. These humans have fought more wars among themselves in a millennium than most Council species have in their entire recorded histories. Their technological development has always accelerated most rapidly during periods of conflict, which suggests," Admiral Thrix added grimly, "that these vessels were developed with military applications in mind, regardless of how they present them diplomatically. The expansion initiative must be delayed." Zin Ora stated, her tentacles coiling tightly. "We cannot push into new territories with an unknown power already demonstrating such capabilities." "Perhaps," suggested Counselor Trev carefully, "we should consider more than delay. The protocols regarding species with rapid military advancement are clear." Every being in the chamber understood the implication. The containment doctrine had only been invoked twice in Council history, but both instances had been deemed necessary to preserve galactic stability. "No," Vexerin said firmly. "We will not discuss containment until we have exhausted diplomatic options. That is our way." "Our way," Admiral Thrix countered, "has never faced a species that advanced from stone tools to grid-penetrating technology in 30 generations. The doctrine exists for precisely this scenario." Vexeren's eyes narrowed. "We received their delegation in 5 hours. I want every detail of this meeting planned. Every word, every gesture must convey both our respect and our strength. Admiral, your defense fleet will maintain its current posture, visible but non-threatening. And if they make demands we cannot accept, asked Srath. Then, Vexaran replied, we negotiate in good faith while our analysts complete their assessment of human capabilities. We have existed for millennia through wisdom, not hasty action. As the Emergency Advisory Committee dissolved into debate, Vexaran turned away, 4 eyes fixed on the distant image of the Intrepid. Something about this situation felt wrong, rushed, as though events were being manipulated toward an outcome they couldn't yet see. Aboard the Intrepid, Captain Chen reviewed the final intelligence briefing with his diplomatic team. The Ready Room's display showed detailed profiles of each council member they were likely to encounter. Remember, Chen instructed, they think in terms of millennia, not years. To them, our rapid advancement is not just surprising, it's frightening. They've built a galactic order based on predictable, controlled development. We represent chaos. And, yet, Commander Walker observed dryly, their system allowed advanced civilizations to watch Earth for centuries without ever making contact. Hard to claim the moral high ground there. Lieutenant Rivera, whose expertise in xenolinguistics had been crucial in deciphering council communications, looked up from her datapad. The observation posts in our solar system were classified as non-interference under Article 7 of their expansion protocols. The interesting part is that those protocols were established shortly after their first scans of Earth. Chen raised an eyebrow. You think we were the reason they created non-interference directives? I think, Rivera replied carefully, that something about early human civilization concerned them enough to create rules about contact with developing worlds. The question is what? The ship's intercom activated. Captain, Lieutenant Harper's voice came through. We're detecting increased energy signatures from 3 of the council vessels. Nothing weaponized, but they've adjusted their positions to form a more effective screening formation around their flagship. Preparing for our visit while maintaining defensive options, Chen nodded. Smart. Any word from Earth Command? The Quantum Com just received an encrypted packet. General Wilson confirms the Perseus and the Orion have reached their designated positions. The Artemis is still en route. Estimated arrival in 20 hours. Chen exchanged glances with Walker. Their backup was nearly in place. 3 additional Earth warships positioned strategically throughout Council space, ready to demonstrate that the Intrepid was not a one-off achievement, but the vanguard of a fleet. Time to prepare, Chen announced, standing up. Rivera, final checks on the translation matrices. Walker, review the security protocols for the transport. I want nothing left to chance. His officers left to complete their tasks. Chen remained alone in the Ready Room. He opened a small compartment in his desk and removed a worn photograph. His father standing in front of the first prototype quantum drive. Exhaustion and triumph mingled on his face. William Chen had died before seeing his creation take humanity to the stars, but his son had carried his vision forward. We made it, Dad, he whispered to the image. Further than anyone thought possible. He replaced the photograph and straightened his uniform. Humanity's first official diplomatic contact with the galactic community would happen in just a few hours, and Samuel Chen intended to ensure they would never be overlooked again. In the grand reception chamber, final preparations were underway. The massive circular room, with its vaulted ceiling displaying a real-time holographic map of council space, had hosted countless diplomatic ceremonies over millennia. But never one like this. Place the verification scanners here and here. Admiral Thrix instructed a team of security personnel, indicating positions around the central days. Passive scans only. Nothing that could be interpreted as aggressive. Will they detect the scanners? Asked a junior officer. The Admiral's scales rippled. Almost certainly, but diplomatic protocol allows for security measures, and I expect they'll have their own. This is as much about what we don't detect as what we do. Across the chamber, Diplomat Counselor Trev supervised the arrangement of the formal seating. The humans must be positioned to face the main council panel, but not so far away that they feel isolated. Remember, they evolved as predator species. Their psychology responds to spatial dominance cues differently than most council members. Meanwhile, in a secure chamber deep within the council hub, archivist Lorexi floated before ancient records few beings had ever seen. The restricted archives, containing information deemed too sensitive for general access, glowed with a pale light as the archivist searched through data stretching back to the council's founding. Shalmi, the ancient being whispered, "The first assessment." The archive responded, projecting images of a primitive Earth, humans in their earliest civilizations. But alongside these expected images were others: simulations, projections, and analyses. Probability curves showing development paths, species psychology assessments, and conflict potential ratings. Earth's rating was the highest the archivist had ever seen. Then came the final assessment, written by a long-dead Krell mathematician. This species combines aggressive expansion tendencies with unusual adaptability and problem-solving capabilities. If their development follows projected patterns, they represent a potential destabilizing influence on galactic order within 500-1200 cycles. Recommend consideration of containment protocols or guided development intervention. The archivist's translucent form pulsed with concern. The council had chosen non-interference rather than containment or intervention, hoping that human development would naturally moderate over time. That gamble now appeared to have failed spectacularly. As the final hour approached, tension throughout the council hub reached unprecedented levels. Security forces were discreetly doubled. Emergency response protocols were quietly activated. The defense fleet maintained its position, weapons powered down but targeting systems fully alert. On the Intrepid, Captain Chen, Commander Walker, and Lieutenant Rivera stood on the transport pad. Each wore the formal blue and silver uniform of the Earth Defense Force, with Chen's captain's insignia gleaming under the lights. Each carried a small device on their wrist, officially described as translation assistants, but containing capabilities the Council would find deeply concerning if they discovered them. "Coordinates locked," reported the transport officer. "Council hub security fields have adjusted to permit our signal." Chen took a deep breath. "Energize." On the Council hub, alarms suddenly blared as energy readings spiked throughout the reception area. The human delegation had arrived, but not via any transport technology the Council had ever encountered. There was no beam, no shuttle, no conventional arrival. One moment the reception area was empty. The next, 3 humans stood at its center, the air around them still shimmering with exotic particles that set every sensor in the chamber into overload. High Counselor Vexaren stepped forward, 4 eyes fixed on Captain Chen, while behind them, Admiral Thrix's scales had turned the ashen color of profound alarm. The humans had just demonstrated yet another impossible technology, and the implications were staggering. Whatever happened in the next few moments would determine the course of galactic history for centuries to come. The silence in the grand reception chamber stretched for several heartbeats as the exotic particles dissipated around the human delegation. Captain Chen stepped forward first, his measured stride projecting confidence without aggression. "High Counselor Vexaren," he said, offering a formal bow that Earth intelligence had determined would be recognized across most Council species as a gesture of respect. "On behalf of Earth and humanity, I thank you for receiving us." Vexaren's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of intense calculation rather than the formal acknowledgement protocol would dictate. "Captain Chen, the Council welcomes you. Your method of arrival was unexpected." Chen allowed himself a small smile. "We find that quantum displacement is more efficient than conventional transport technologies for short-range travel. I hope our arrival didn't disrupt your systems." Admiral Thrix, still ashen-scaled, stepped forward. "Quantum displacement has been theorized but never successfully implemented. The energy requirements alone would be within acceptable parameters for our technology. Chen finished smoothly. But we're not here to discuss transport methods, Admiral. We're here to discuss Earth's place in the galactic community. The delegation was escorted to the central area of the chamber, where 3 seats had been prepared for them. As they walked, Chen noticed the subtle scanning devices positioned around the perimeter and gave Walker an almost imperceptible nod. The commander tapped a sequence on his wrist device, activating the countermeasures that would feed the Council scanners carefully crafted misinformation about human biology and technology. High Counselor Vexerin took the central position on the raised dais where the 12 senior council members were arranged in a semicircle. The vast chamber's walls displayed a real-time galactic map, with the council hub pulsing at its center. Chen noted with interest that Earth was not marked on the display. Before we begin formal proceedings, Vexerin announced, I must address a matter of immediate concern. Our sensors have detected 3 additional vessels of Earth origin positioned at strategic points throughout Council space. This constitutes a potential security breach that— Not a breach, High Counselor, Chen interrupted calmly. A precaution. Surely you understand that a previously unknown species would exercise caution when making first official contact with a galactic power. The Council representatives exchanged glances. Commander Walker suppressed a smile. The fact that the Council had detected the other ships meant their cloaking systems had allowed themselves to be found, exactly as planned. The Artemis, still truly hidden, remained their ace. Captain, Admiral Frick said, scales now shifting to a deep purple of concern. You claimed this was a diplomatic mission, yet you've positioned military vessels throughout our territory without permission or notification. Lieutenant Rivera spoke for the first time, her voice clear and steady. Admiral, we reviewed the Galactic Charter, Section 7.3, regarding first contact protocols. There is no prohibition against a newly contacted species maintaining a defensive posture during initial diplomatic exchanges. In fact, precedent suggests it's expected. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The humans had studied Council law. Furthermore, Rivera continued, given that Council observation posts have been monitoring Earth for centuries without our consent, one could argue that the Council initiated contact long ago, just unilaterally and covertly. The chamber erupted in protests and exclamations. Vexerin raised all 4 hands, calling for order. Lieutenant, your interpretation of our laws is creative. The observation posts were established under non-interference protocols specifically designed to allow developing worlds to evolve naturally. And, yet, Chen responded, those same protocols classified Earth as primitive despite clear evidence to the contrary. Our question is, was this an error in assessment or a deliberate decision? The question hung in the air like a drawn weapon. Chen watched the Council members carefully, noting how several glanced toward the archivist, whose translucent form had gone utterly still. Before Vexerin could respond, the massive doors at the rear of the chamber burst open. A Council security officer rushed in, moving directly to Admiral Thrix and speaking urgently in a dialect too low for the translation matrices to capture. The Admiral's scales shifted rapidly between colors before settling on a deep red that Chen hadn't seen before. High Counselor, Thrix announced, his voice tight. We've just received word from Outpost Station Epsilon 12 in the Outer Territories. They've detected an anomalous energy signature originating from the direction of Earth. Something large is moving through Council space on an intercept course. All eyes turned to Chen, who appeared genuinely surprised. He glanced at Walker and Rivera, who both showed similar confusion. We have no knowledge of any additional Earth vessels beyond those already acknowledged, Chen stated firmly. Admiral Thrix's scales rippled in disbelief. The energy signature is consistent with your vessel's propulsion system, but magnitudes larger. Chen's surprise turned to alarm. That's not possible. Earth has only 4 ships with quantum drive capability, and all are accounted for. Then perhaps, Counselor Zrath's crystalline form vibrated with accusation. You are not as unified in your human governance as you claim. Perhaps some faction of your species acts independently. The implication was clear. Earth was being accused of duplicity at best, preparing for hostile action at worst. Chen turned to Vexaran, but before he could speak, the chamber's galactic display flickered in change. The map zoomed in on a sector near the council hub, showing a massive energy distortion moving at incredible speed. Chen stared at the display, genuine confusion evident in his expression. High Counselor, I give you my word as an officer of Earth that whatever that is, it is not of Earth origin. And yet, Admiral Thrix countered, it employs technology remarkably similar to your own. A terrible suspicion began to form in Chen's mind. He turned to Rivera. Lieutenant, access the secure database. Cross-reference the quantum signature patterns with historical records. Rivera worked quickly on her wrist device, her expression growing increasingly troubled. Captain, there's a partial match. But it's impossible. She looked up, face pale. The signature contains elements similar to the prototype drives your father was developing before the unified design was adopted. William, Chen's discarded prototypes. Walker asked incredulously. Those designs were scrapped decades ago when the quantum stability issues couldn't be resolved. But the theory was sound, Chen said quietly, pieces falling into place. The problems were in the containment field equations. He turned to face the council. High Counselor, I believe we may both be facing a situation neither of us anticipated. I request secure communication with my ship immediately. Vexaran hesitated, then nodded to a technician. Moments later, Lieutenant Harper's voice came through on a localized comm channel. Captain, we're tracking it too. Whatever it is, it's massive. At least 5 times the size of the Intrepid. The quantum signature is unstable but familiar. It's like looking at a corrupted version of our own dry system. Chen's mind raced. Sarah, check if the Perseus or Orion have detected any unusual transmissions from the Council observation posts near Earth within the past year. A tense minute passed before Harper responded. Sir, the Perseus reports that an observation post in the Kuiper Belt went dark approximately 7 months ago. Earth Command classified it as a technical failure since there was no debris field. Shen looked up at Vexaran, understanding dawning on his face. The observation post wasn't destroyed. It was captured, not by Earth, but by someone else. Someone who gained access to early quantum drive research data through your own observation of our development. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. If Chen was right, their own surveillance of Earth had allowed a third party to acquire human technology. Technology the Council itself hadn't yet mastered. The chamber's display suddenly flashed red as proximity alerts activated throughout the Council hub. The unknown vessel had accelerated dramatically and would reach their position within minutes. All 4 of Vexaran's eyes fixed on Chen. Captain, it appears we may have a common problem. More than you know, Chen replied grimly. Those early prototype drives were abandoned for good reason. The containment fields were unstable. A drive of that magnitude operating with flawed equations. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone present understood the catastrophic implications. Admiral Thrix's scales had gone completely white. All defense vessels, battle stations, civilian evacuation protocols, initiate immediately. He turned to Chen. Captain, whatever disagreements exist between our civilizations, I believe we now face a shared threat. Will Earth stand with the Council? Chen looked to Walker and Rivera, seeing in their eyes the same determination he felt. Whatever diplomatic complications this would create could be dealt with later. Right now, thousands of lives, alien and potentially human, were at risk. Admiral, Chen replied, the Intrepid and her sister ships are at your disposal. But you should know, if that vessel is using unstable quantum drive technology, conventional weapons may only accelerate the containment failure. The galactic display blinked again as the massive unidentified vessel dropped out of quantum displacement directly in front of the Council defense fleet. Its design was a grotesque hybrid of Council and human technology. elegant curves interrupted by angular protrusions, it all pulsing with unstable energy that even the display systems struggled to represent accurately. "Open a channel to all Earth vessels," Chen ordered. "Emergency Protocol Omega. Authentication, Chen Alpha 7 Tango." As the council chamber erupted into frantic activity around them, Chen turned to Vexaren. "High Counselor, it seems our first official diplomatic meeting will have to wait. Right now, we have a more pressing concern." The massive ship's energy signature suddenly spiked on the display, and everyone in the chamber fell silent as a communication request flashed on the central screen. Someone, or something, wanted to talk. The massive view screen in the council chamber flickered before resolving into an image that caused audible gasps throughout the assembly. The being on the screen was unmistakably Krell, a species thought extinct for over 700 years. The last of the great founders of the Galactic Council, the Krell had disappeared suddenly and completely, leaving behind only their mathematical legacy and technological marvels. "Greetings, children of lesser minds," the Krell said, its voice a strange harmonic that seemed to bypass the translation matrices and speak directly to the mind. "How fascinating to see humans and council meeting at last. Premature, but fascinating nonetheless." Chen stepped forward. "Identify yourself and state your intentions." The Krell's compound eyes shifted, focusing on Chen with unnerving intensity. "Captain Samuel Chen, son of William Chen, whose primitive but surprisingly elegant quantum theories provided the final components we needed. We have many names across many iterations of reality, but you may call me Observer. My intention is simple: course correction." High Counselor Vexaren moved to stand beside Chen. "The Krell vanished centuries ago." "How is this possible?" "Vanished." Observer seemed amused. "We merely stepped sideways into probability to observe the grand experiment without contaminating the results. Unfortunately, humanity's quantum breakthrough occurred 300 years ahead of the optimal timeline. The Council's observation posts were meant to monitor, not inspire." Admiral Thrix's scales pulsed with alarm. "What experiment? What timeline?" "The great question, Admiral. Can diverse species with competing interests achieve stable galactic harmony? The Council was our laboratory, and humanity was to be the final variable, introduced only after sufficient stability was achieved." Observer's expression shifted to something approximating disappointment. "Now the experiment is compromised. The humans have arrived too early, with technology too advanced. The probability cascade is irreversible." Lieutenant Rivera's eyes widened in sudden understanding. "The containment protocols in the archives, they weren't created by the Council at all, were they? They were Krell directives." "Perceptive," Observer acknowledged. "Humanity's potential for both creation and destruction required careful integration into the galactic community. The protocols were designed to delay human advancement until the proper moment." Chen's mind raced. "And now that we've advanced too quickly, you've come to what? Put us back in our place. Oh, we've come to salvage what remains of a 7,000-year experiment," Observer replied coldly. "My vessel contains a quantum resonance device capable of creating a localized temporal fold. The Earth and its colonies will be shifted 300 years backward in development, a minor adjustment from our perspective, but sufficient to restore the intended timeline." The implication struck Chen like a physical blow. "You're talking about erasing centuries of human progress, billions of lives altered or never existing at all. That's genocide." "It is correction," Observer countered. "The alternative is galactic war within 50 years, as your species and the Council inevitably clash over resources and ideology." Vexaren stepped forward. "This Council has maintained peace for millennia without such intervention. We reject your correction and your presumption that our future is predetermined." Observer seemed almost sad. "Your rejection is noted but irrelevant. The process has already begun." On the tactical display, energy readings from the Krell vessel spiked dramatically. The ship's hull began to pulse with cascading waves of quantum distortion. "All vessels, Evasive maneuvers. Admiral Thrix commanded. Defensive positions around the hub. Chen turned to his wrist communicator. Intrepid, status report. Lieutenant Harper's voice came through, tense but controlled. Captain, we're detecting massive quantum field generation from the Krull vessel. The Perseus and Orion are moving to flanking positions, but our weapons can't penetrate their defensive fields. What about the Artemis? Chen asked urgently. Still hidden, sir. They've maintained total stealth. Chen locked eyes with Walker, a silent understanding passing between them. Initiate protocol Icarus. Authentication, Chen Omega 9 Echo. Walker nodded grimly. Sir, are you certain? That's a one-way. I am certain, Commander. We're out of options. Turning back to Vexaren and the Council, Chen's expression was resolute. High Counselor, you need to evacuate the hub immediately. My ships will attempt to contain the Krull vessel, but I can't guarantee your safety. What are you planning, Captain? Vexaren asked, all four eyes fixed on Chen's face. Something desperate, Chen admitted. But first, you need to understand what we're truly facing. He turned to Rivera. Lieutenant, show them. Rivera activated her wrist device, projecting a holographic model of the Krull vessel's quantum drive. The Krull aren't using a standard quantum displacement system. They've created a quantum entanglement cascade, essentially binding their vessel to multiple points in space-time simultaneously. It's why our weapons can't affect them. They exist partially outside normal causality. Admiral Thrix's scales shifted to a deep blue of realization. Then conventional defense is impossible. Not impossible, Chen corrected. Just insufficient. But there's another approach. He turned to the tactical display, where the Council Defense Fleet was now engaging the Krull vessel without effect. Earth developed quantum technology along a different path than the Krull anticipated. We discovered that quantum fields can be collapsed by introducing a perfectly opposed resonance pattern. A quantum negation pulse, Walker explained. Theoretically capable of disrupting any quantum field, no matter how powerful. But generating and delivering such a pulse requires a vessel to get dangerously close and sacrifice its own quantum drive in the process. Chen finished. A suicide mission. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Chen was proposing to sacrifice one of Earth's precious few starships to stop the Krull. Observer's voice cut through the silence. A pointless gesture, Captain. Your quantum negation theory is sound but requires precision we have already accounted for. Your ships cannot approach closely enough to deliver such a pulse effectively. Chen smiled thinly. Not my ships, Observer. Just one ship. One you don't even know exists. At that moment, alarms blared throughout the chamber as sensors detected a new presence. The Artemis, Earth's newest and most advanced vessel, decloaked directly behind a Krull ship, so close that their quantum fields began to interfere with each other. Artemis to Captain Chen. A new voice came through the communication system. Captain Alex Rodriguez reporting. We're in position and ready to execute Icarus protocol on your command. Observer's expression changed for the first time, showing genuine concern. This is futile, Captain. Even if your vessel disrupts our quantum field, the resulting cascade will destroy both ships and damage this entire sector. You would sacrifice your own people to prevent the erasure of human history. Without hesitation, Chen replied firmly. But that's not the full plan. He turned to the Council. High Counselor, the quantum negation will create a brief window where the Krull vessel becomes fully present in normal space. During that moment, your defense fleet can target these specific coordinates. He transmitted a data package to the tactical systems. Hit those points with everything you have, and their drive will collapse rather than explode. Vexaren looked to Admiral Thrix, who studied the data with growing respect in his eyes. This might work. The targeting is precise, but our vessels can deliver the necessary firepower. But your ship, Vexaren said to Chen, the Artemis and its crew. Chen's expression was solemn. The Artemis is equipped with emergency quantum displacement pods. The crew has a chance to escape before impact. A small chance, but a chance nonetheless. The tactical display showed the Krell vessel's quantum field expanding, beginning the temporal fold that would erase centuries of human progress. There was no more time for debate. Artemis, Chen commanded, execute Icarus Protocol. Council vessels, prepare to fire on my mark. Protocol initiated, Captain Rodriguez reported calmly. Quantum negation pulse charging. 20 seconds to full capacity. The Artemis moved even closer to the Krell vessel, the interference between their quantum fields creating spectacular visual distortions throughout the region of space. On the view screen, observers' expression had changed to one of calculation. Your species continues to surprise, Captain Chen. Perhaps the experiment is not entirely compromised after all. Perhaps this is simply evolution. 10 seconds, came Rodriguez's voice. Chen looked directly at observer. We make our own future. That's what you never understood about humans. 5 seconds. All vessels, stand by to fire, Admiral Thrix ordered, his scales now a steady, determined purple. 3, 2, 1. Negation pulse deployed. A blinding flash overwhelmed the view screen as the Artemis released its quantum negation pulse. The Krell vessel's multiple quantum states collapsed into a single point in spacetime, suddenly vulnerable. Fire, Thrix commanded. The Council Defense Fleet unleashed a coordinated barrage precisely targeted on the coordinates Chen had provided. The Krell vessel's drive core absorbed the combined assault, energy cascading through its systems in controlled collapse rather than catastrophic detonation. The view screen cleared to show the Artemis breaking apart, emergency pods jettisoning in all directions as the ship sacrificed itself. The Krell vessel hung in space, its systems failing, quantum field dissipating. Negation successful, Rivera reported, studying her readings. The temporal fold has collapsed. Earth is safe. Observer's image flickered on the view screen. Impressive adaptation, humans. Perhaps we were wrong to doubt your readiness. The experiment continues, but now, with new parameters. The Krell vessel began to glow with internal light, not the catastrophic explosion Chen had feared, but something more controlled, a deliberate process. What's happening? Vexarin demanded. They're shifting again, Chen realized. Not through time, but sideways, back to wherever they've been observing from. Captain Chen, observer said, its image beginning to fade. Tell your father's son that we will be watching. The Council was our creation, but perhaps humanity will be its salvation, or its destruction. The choice, as you say, is yours to make. The Krell vessel shimmered and disappeared, not with violence, but with a gentle ripple through spacetime that left only scattered energy readings behind. In the aftermath, as Council vessels raced to recover the Artemis escape pods, Vexarin turned to Chen. It seems, Captain, that our first diplomatic meeting has been rather more eventful than either of us anticipated. Chen nodded, exhaustion finally showing on his face. Not exactly how I planned to introduce Earth to the galactic community. And yet, Admiral Thrix said, his scales now a thoughtful blue-green, you have made quite an impression. The Council has existed for millennia, but never have we been forced to confront our own origins, or our future, so directly. Vexaren's 4 eyes blinked in the pattern that indicated formal recognition. The expansion initiative will need to be reconsidered, not delayed, but perhaps reimagined, with humanity as partners rather than subjects of observation. That, Chen said with a tired smile, sounds like a conversation worth having. As reports confirmed that all escape pods from the Artemis have been recovered, with Captain Rodriguez among the survivors, Chen looked out at the stars visible through the Council hub's massive viewport. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage in a manner no one could have predicted, not the Council, not the mysterious Krell, perhaps not even Earth itself. But they had arrived to stay. 3 days after the confrontation with the Krell vessel, Captain Samuel Chen stood in a newly designated chamber within the Council hub. The room, hastily converted from a ceremonial space into something resembling a conference room, now served as the first official Earth embassy in Council space. Through the viewport, he could see the Intrepid maintaining its position alongside the Council defense fleet, no longer as potential adversaries, but as cautious allies. "Penny for your thoughts, Captain," Commander Walker asked, joining him at the viewport. Chen smiled slightly, just thinking about how differently this all could have gone. 3 days ago, we were preparing for potential conflict. Now we're setting up an embassy and negotiating technology exchanges, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts, Walker added. General Wilson is going to have a field day with the paperwork alone. Captain Rodriguez entered the chamber, still moving gingerly from injuries sustained during the Artemis's evacuation. Of the ship's crew of 112, 107 had survived. A miracle considering the circumstances, but the loss of 5 still weighed heavily on everyone. The memorial service for the Artemis crew is scheduled for tomorrow, Rodriguez reported. The Council has offered to host it in their Grand Assembly Hall. Apparently, it's quite an honor. Chen nodded. Accept it. Our people died protecting not just Earth, but potentially the entire galactic community. They deserve to be recognized. Lieutenant Rivera looked up from her workstation, where she had been analyzing the data recovered from the incident. Captain, I've been reviewing the Krell communication logs. There's something interesting buried in the quantum signature patterns. What have you found? Chen asked, crossing the room to look at her display. It's subtle, but there's a recurring pattern in the quantum fluctuations that doesn't match anything else in the transmission. At first, I thought it was just drive interference, but it's too regular. She highlighted a series of peaks and valleys in the data. This is a message, embedded at the quantum level. Chen studied the pattern. Can you decode it? I think so. It's using principles from your father's early papers on quantum communication, papers that were never published outside of Earth's secure databases. Rivera looked up at Chen. I think this message was meant specifically for you. After several hours of intensive analysis, Rivera and a team of Council scientists managed to extract the hidden message. It was brief but chilling. This iteration continues. The true test begins. What does it mean? Asked Vexaran, who had joined them upon hearing of the discovery. Chen paced the room, thinking. The observer spoke of their experiment, of humanity arriving too early. But what if that wasn't a failure from their perspective? What if it was just the next phase? Admiral Thrix, whose scales had finally settled back to their normal gray after days of stress-induced color fluctuations, frowned. You think they intended for all of this to happen? The confrontation, the revelation of their existence. I think, Chen said carefully, that beings who can exist simultaneously across multiple points in space-time might have a very different perspective on cause and effect than we do. What looks like a linear series of events to us might be something else entirely to them. A test, Walker murmured, not just of humanity, but of the Council too, of how we'd react to each other. And we passed, Rodriguez added, or at least we didn't fail badly enough for them to reset the board. Vexaran's 4 eyes blinked in the pattern that Chen now recognized as thoughtful consideration. If true, this raises profound questions about the Council's entire history. Have we truly been governing ourselves, or have the Krell been guiding events from the shadows all along? Does it matter? Chen asked. Whatever their intentions, whatever their observations, we still make our own choices. They may set the stage, but we determine the play. The High Counselor studied Chen for a long moment. An interesting perspective. Many would find the idea of such manipulation disturbing. It is disturbing, Chen acknowledged. But it also means they see potential in us, in all of us, worth observing, worth testing, perhaps even worth nurturing in their own strange way. The following week saw rapid developments in Earth Council relations. The Intrepid remained at the Council hub, while the Perseus and Orion conducted diplomatic visits to key council worlds. Initial fear and suspicion gradually gave way to cautious curiosity and even excitement among many council species. Humanity, with its unique development path and innovative approaches to problems, represented something new in a civilization that had grown perhaps too comfortable with its own established patterns. In a private meeting with Earth's rapidly assembled diplomatic court, Vexeren made an unprecedented proposal. The Council has existed for 7 millennia with the same foundational structure. Perhaps it is time for evolution. We propose creating a new position within the Council leadership, an Innovation Directorate, to be headed initially by Earth representatives. General Wilson, who had arrived via quantum displacement along with Earth's diplomatic team, raised an eyebrow. That's quite a concession, High Counselor. Many in the Council must oppose such a move. Some do, Vexeren admitted. Others see the wisdom in it. The Krell revelation has shaken many long-held assumptions. If we have been part of an experiment all along, perhaps it is time to take more control of our own development. And you trust us with such responsibility? Chen asked. A species you classified as primitive just weeks ago. Trust is perhaps too strong a word, Captain, Vexeren replied with unexpected candor. But we recognize potential when we see it. Humanity achieved in 3 centuries what takes most species millennia. You developed technologies along paths we never considered. And when faced with an existential threat, you were willing to sacrifice your most advanced vessel to protect not just yourselves, but the greater community. Besides, Admiral Thrix added, his scales now showing hints of amused green. Better to have you innovating within our structures than outside them. 2 months later, Earth's first official council representative took office. Dr. Sophia Chen, Captain Chen's younger sister and one of Earth's leading quantum physicists, stood before the assembled council to accept her new role as the inaugural Innovation Director. On behalf of Earth and humanity, I accept this responsibility with humility and determination, she began, her voice steady despite the historic nature of the moment. Our journey to the stars has been unconventional, perhaps even premature by some standards. But we come not to disrupt, but to contribute, not to dominate, but to collaborate. From his position at the side of the chamber, Captain Chen watched with pride. The Intrepid would be returning to Earth soon, its historic mission complete. 3 new ships were already under construction, designed with input from Council engineers, but incorporating Earth's quantum innovations. The Artemis's sacrifice had not been in vain. The revelation that advanced beings have been observing our collective development might be unsettling. Sophia continued, addressing the concern that had rippled through both Earth and Council society. But I choose to see it differently. If beings as ancient and powerful as the Krell still find us worth studying, worth testing, then our potential must be extraordinary indeed. That evening, at a reception celebrating the new appointment, Captain Chen found himself standing once again with High Counselor Vexeren, looking out at the stars. Your sister speaks well, Vexeren commented. She will represent Earth admirably. She always was the diplomatic one in the family, Chen replied with a smile. I just drive the ships, and occasionally save galactic civilization, Vexeren added dryly. A minor accomplishment. Chen laughed, surprised by the High Counselor's attempt at humor. We still don't know if the Krell will return, or what their ultimate intentions are. No, Vexeren agreed. But perhaps that uncertainty is part of the test. Learning to move forward without perfect knowledge, to build and grow despite the unknown. That's something humans have always been good at, Chen said. The unknown never stopped us before. Indeed, it is perhaps your species' most remarkable trait. Vexeren's 4 eyes blinked in what Chen now recognized as genuine respect. The Krell message said, the true test begins. Whatever that means, I find I am grateful that humanity will face it alongside the Council, rather than apart from it. As the reception continued around them, Chen thought about the journey that had brought him here. What had begun as a mission to force recognition of Earth's place in the galaxy had transformed into something far more profound. the beginning of a genuine partnership that might reshape the future for all species. The Intrepid's appearance had indeed disrupted the Galactic Council's plans, but perhaps that disruption had been necessary. Perhaps sometimes, plans needed to be disrupted for greater possibilities to emerge. In the vast chamber beyond, humans mingled with beings from hundreds of worlds, exchanging ideas, building connections, laying the groundwork for a future none of them could fully predict, but all would help create. The Krell might be watching from their place between realities, but the story unfolding now belonged to those who lived it. As Captain Chen prepared to rejoin the gathering, his communicator chimed with a message from Earth Command. A new mission, a new challenge awaiting his return. Whatever the Krell's true test might be, humanity would meet it head-on, not alone, but as part of something greater than themselves. The stars beyond the viewport seemed brighter somehow, the galaxy full of possibilities that hadn't existed mere months ago. Human warships had arrived on the galactic stage, but it was human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability that would determine what happened next. And somehow, Chen thought as he looked out at the assembled representatives of hundreds of worlds, that felt exactly right.